4:51 a.m. The Northern Persian Gulf, a U.S. naval formation, 2 destroyers and a cruiser, 41 nautical miles from the Iranian coast. 14 coastal rockets launched simultaneously from 2 separate shore positions. No warning, no prior radar lock, no communication. Just 14 fire trails rising from the Iranian coastline heading directly for the formation. USS Ross had 38 seconds. Welcome to Navy Beacon, where we break down the operations that define sea power. The rockets were Fajr-5s. The Fajr-5 is an Iranian-manufactured 333mm unguided artillery rocket. It has a range of approximately 75 kilometers, carries a 175-kilogram high-explosive warhead, and flies a ballistic trajectory. It is not a guided missile. It does not have a seeker head. It does not adjust its course in flight. What it has is range, payload, and mass production. In Iranian coastal defense doctrine, unguided rockets like the Fajr-5 are not expected to achieve precision hits against maneuvering naval targets. They are designed to do something different. Saturate a target area, force ships to maneuver defensively, disrupt operations, and create political and psychological pressure. In a mass salvo, they also have a statistical probability of hits that increases with volume. 14 rockets, 2 launch sites, fired in a ripple pattern designed to spread the impact footprint across a 2.4 nautical mile target box. The U.S. naval formation, USS Ross, USS Donald Cook, and USS Monterey, was inside that target box. The launches were detected by space-based infrared sensors 9 seconds after the rockets left their rails. The data reached USS Ross's Combat Information Center at 4:51:14 a.m., 5 seconds after satellite detection. Time to impact, 33 seconds. The tactical action officer aboard Ross, Lieutenant Commander Helena Park, processed the picture in under 2 seconds. 14 inbound ballistic tracks, spread pattern consistent with unguided rockets, impact footprint covering the entire formation. She called General Quarters and initiated the formation's emergency dispersal maneuver simultaneously. Emergency dispersal. Each ship in a formation brakes to a pre-assigned bearing at maximum speed, opening distance between vessels and reducing the probability of multiple hits from a single salvo. USS Ross turned hard to port. USS Donald Cook broke to starboard. USS Monterey, the cruiser, accelerated straight ahead and turned northeast. A Ticonderoga-class cruiser at maximum acceleration goes from 15 knots to 32 knots in approximately 3 minutes. The dispersal maneuver bought time, but it could not move 3 large warships far enough in 33 seconds to exit the rocket's impact footprint entirely. The Failank's CIWS systems on all 3 ships came active automatically. Against ballistic rockets on a steep terminal trajectory, the Phalanx is limited. Its radar and gun are optimized for low-altitude, high-speed cruise missiles, not for steep plunging fire. But it could engage the rockets in the final 2 to 3 seconds of flight if the geometry was right. And the ship's own electronic warfare suite had no countermeasure for an unguided rocket. There was nothing to jam, nothing to decoy. The rockets were flying blind, and the ships were in their path. 22 seconds to impact. The first impacts came at 4:51:47 a.m. 6 of the 14 rockets hit the water, geysers, some close, within 200 meters of the ship's hulls, enough to send shock waves through the hull plating and rattle every loose fitting aboard. 3 rockets were engaged by Failank systems in the last seconds of flight. 2 were destroyed. 1 was damaged enough that its warhead failed to detonate on impact. It hit the water at a degraded angle, and the fuse did not function. 5 rockets landed beyond the formation. Long shots, outside the formation's dispersed footprint. That left 5 rockets unaccounted for. 1 impacted USS Ross. The rocket hit the destroyer's stern, striking the aft helicopter deck. The 175-kilogram warhead detonated on contact with the steel flight deck. The explosion created a crater approximately 2 meters across in the flight deck plating, destroyed the aviation fuel storage access panel, ignited a small fuel fire, and blew fragmentation across an arc that covered the aft working deck and the hangar door. 3 sailors in the aft damage control party were hit by fragmentation. 1, Engineman First Class Robert Diaz, was killed by a fragment that penetrated his body armor at the neckline. 2 others were seriously wounded. The fire on the flight deck was brought under control in 8 minutes by the damage control team. 1 rocket hit USS Donald Cook. It landed in the water 12 meters off the starboard beam, close enough that the blast wave detonated against the hull below the waterline. No penetration, no flooding. but the shock transmitted through the hull caused a circuit breaker failure in the ship's combat systems compartment that knocked the AN/SPY-1D radar offline for 4 minutes and 20 seconds. 4 minutes and 20 seconds of radar blindness during an active attack. During those 4 minutes, USS Donald Cook was operating on passive sensors only, receiving radar data from the other ships via data link, but unable to independently track or engage. 3 rockets hit the water close enough to USS Monterey to be felt aboard. No structural damage, no casualties. The salvo was spent. On the shore, the 2 Iranian rocket launch sites had fired their full ready load and the crews were beginning dispersal. The sites were not permanent installations. They were mobile, locally produced rocket launching rails mounted on commercial flatbed trucks, pre-surveyed to the firing position using GPS coordinates, deployed to the site in a 3-hour window before the engagement and designed to be gone before retaliation could arrive. The IRGC had studied American strike timelines. They knew, based on previous engagements in the region, that the minimum time from an attack to a U.S. air response was between 18 and 25 minutes, depending on what aircraft were on alert and where they were positioned. The launch crews had a 20-minute dispersal window. They had used 11 of those minutes when the FA-18S arrived. The strike had been pre-planned. Not pre-planned for this specific attack, but pre-planned for exactly this scenario. Fifth Fleet maintained targeting packages for known and likely coastal rocket launch sites along the northern Gulf. The packages included GPS coordinates of the launch positions, identification of likely dispersal routes, and, critically, the locations of the fixed radar installations that the mobile rocket units depended on for targeting data. The mobile launchers themselves were unguided. They did not need radar to fire. But the targeting solutions they used, the GPS coordinates of the U.S. formation's position, were derived from a shore-based radar network that tracked the ships continuously. Destroy the radar network, and future rocket attacks lose their targeting accuracy entirely. That was the strike package. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets from USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, call signs Razor 21 and Razor 22, were airborne within 6 minutes of the rocket attack. They had been on Alert 5, engines turning, ordnance loaded. Each aircraft carried 2 AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles and 2 GBU-38 500-pound JDAM bombs. The HARM missiles would prosecute any active radar site automatically, home on a mission, launch, and destroy whatever was putting out radar energy. The JDAMs would handle the fixed infrastructure, the hardened radar buildings, the generator facilities, the communications nodes that tied the shore-based network together. At 5:09 a.m., 18 minutes after the rocket salvo, Razor 21 fired her first HARM against the primary coastal surveillance radar at grid position Alpha 37, 12 kilometers inland from the launch site. The radar had been active since 3 a.m., providing continuous tracking data on the U.S. formation. Its operator had been given 30 seconds of warning via IRGC internal communications that the strike aircraft had been detected on approach. He had 30 seconds to decide whether to shut down the radar, losing the tracking picture, or keep it active and accept the missile coming for it. He shut down at 22 seconds. The HARM, now without a radar signal to home on, switched to its memory mode and prosecuted the last known position of the radar emission. The missile impacted within 40 meters of the radar antenna, close enough to destroy the antenna array and the generator building. The radar was gone. The second HARM, fired by Razor 22, caught the backup radar at the secondary site, a smaller mobile unit positioned 4 kilometers from the primary, before its operator received the warning. The HARM detonated directly above the radar van. No survivors in the vehicle. The JDAMs followed. 4 bombs, 4 fixed infrastructure targets. The radar operations building, the fiber optic communications junction that linked the radar network to the rocket launch coordination center, and 2 diesel generator facilities that powered the entire installation. All 4 bombs were direct hits or within circular error probable. By 5:17 a.m., 26 minutes after the rockets were fired, the entire Iranian coastal radar network covering the northern Gulf sector had been destroyed. But the dispersal window had closed. Both mobile rocket launch sites had departed before the aircraft arrived. The truck-mounted launchers were gone, mixed into the commercial road traffic of a coastal highway, indistinguishable from hundreds of other flatbed trucks moving agricultural equipment in the pre-dawn hours. They were not found. USS Ross entered Bahrain at 11:44 a.m. The aft flight deck was not operational. A temporary repair team from the Naval Surface Warfare Center arrived by helicopter the following morning and began structural assessment. The assessment: 3 to 4 weeks of repair work before the helicopter deck was operational again. The ship herself, propulsion, weapons, combat systems, was fully functional. Engineman First Class Robert Diaz was buried in San Antonio, Texas, 18 days after the engagement. He was 31 years old. He had been in the Navy for 9 years. His wife and 3 children received the flag. USS Donald Cook's radar blackout, 4 minutes and 20 seconds, had no operational consequences during the actual engagement. The rockets were unguided. Radar was not needed to avoid them. But the after-action review spent considerable time on what that blackout would have meant in a different scenario. If the attack had been rockets followed by cruise missiles, a layered assault, 4 minutes of radar blindness on one of the 3 ships in the formation would have created an engagement gap that the surviving radar ships could not fully compensate for. The review recommended that the circuit breaker array in the combat systems compartment be redesigned to prevent a single shock event from cascading into a radar system shutdown. The modification cost $180,000 per ship. It was approved immediately. The destruction of the coastal radar network had a measurable effect. The following 6 weeks, IRGC coastal observation units in the northern Gulf sector reported a significant degradation in their ability to track U.S. naval movements in the area. 3 internal IRGC planning sessions, details of which were later reconstructed from signals intelligence, noted specifically that the loss of the fixed radar network forced mobile units to rely on less precise tracking methods, reducing the accuracy of any future rocket targeting solution. The rockets were unguided to begin with. Making the targeting data less precise made them, in effect, area suppression weapons rather than targeted ones. The northern Gulf formation continued its patrol, but the rocket launch trucks were still out there, hidden, waiting for another pre-surveyed position, another window. The IRGC had lost its radar network. It had not lost its rockets. And without the radar network to identify the exact location of the U.S. formation, the next salvo would be less accurate. Less accurate, not impossible. 14. The math was simple. The IRGC needed fewer than 11 minutes to fire and disperse. In the next planning session, the dispersal window was shortened to 7. Stay vigilant, stay informed. This is Navy Beacon, and we'll see you in the next one.